Hello there, and welcome. Welcome, fellow rune seers and rune bitkies, fellow runesters. It's Psychic Cynthia here. And today we're going to take another journey into rune reading and rune divination. And actually this video is in inspiration as I'm preparing for my rune reader course that I will soon be offering. And one of the things that came up for me today in a reading for a client was the use of the runes to answer a yes-no question. So that's what we're going to be exploring in this video today. And we're just going to do the tip of the iceberg, okay? And I'll need to think about it some more. I want to get some materials in the course about this, but let's start by just tuning into our ancestors and guides and opening to the spirits of the runes themselves. I have two sets of runes laid out here in my fairy den, my fairy garden. I'll have to put a photo in later for you to see. But just open to the runes right now for a moment as we're beginning this journey, open to their power and energy. And open to the ancestors, our ancestral guides who brought us to this path. And you can be on the runic path, whatever your DNA is, whatever your blood is, because we can all tap into the spiritual ancestors of the runes and of the north. Alrighty, so let's talk about utilizing the runes in our readings to answer yes-no questions. Can you do that? First off, let's ask that question. Can you utilize the runes? Can you use runes to answer a yes-no question? Many people say, no, you can't do that. The runes don't tell you yes, no. In my experience as a rune reader, they definitely can offer guidance about yes, no, or sometimes they say it doesn't matter. And I want you to know that I'm surprised by this. As you may or may not know, those of you who are familiar with my work know that my main profession is I'm a psychic medium and then also an astrologer. And generally, when I work with students or even with clients, I encourage people to not ask questions that are for yes or no answers, because I think it's very limiting, okay? And also, I don't find that our spirit guides, especially when you're channeling or doing mediumship or just opening to your higher self, I don't find that the higher self often answers things in yes or no answers only. Sometimes maybe, sometimes if it's very urgent, but in general it's more productive, let's say, in a reading usually. Even if it's a reading you're just doing for yourself, you're asking for guidance from the ancestors and your higher self or the runes. It's more productive to say, what will happen if I do this, or what can I expect if I do this, rather than, should I do this or should I do that? I mean, it's really, I generally think of these questions as being kind of lame and lazy. Okay, really, if you're going to approach an oracle, you need to have more thought than that, usually. However, I'm open to evolving in my thinking, as we all should be. And over the years, my thinking about this has begun to evolve and change. And I can see that there are some instances, especially when I am reading for my clients, my private reading clients, and where they really do need just a yes or no answer from the runes or the guides. And so arriving at that can be difficult. And I have found, again, that the runes can do that. Now, before we dive into just a few tips on how to do this, I want to say this. In order to understand a yes or no answer with the runes, you need to be at least somewhat familiar with their meanings. You need to understand the basic meaning of each of these 24 runes. And notice I did say 24. I know some people use a blank rune. So, well, if you're going to use that, then you have to be familiar with 24 runes plus a blank rune. But it's going to be hard to determine yes or no answers if you don't know a little bit about the meanings. And the more you know about the meanings, the more you have meditated upon the runes, the more you have read with them, worked with them shamanically, the more you understand the depth of each rune. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Each one of these 24 runes is a mathematical variable. It represents a set of variables, actually. It's like algebra, you know, and I know a lot of us don't like algebra, but you know, back when you used to do that in school, if you did, you know, you'd have these equations, and it'd say x plus y equals, you know, 177, for example. It could be any number at the end, but x plus y equals z, right? And, you know, z would usually be fixed. And a lot of times, you know, y would be fixed too. And you could find x, or maybe y wouldn't be. So you've got to find these variables that equal this, right? And each x could be a lot of things. X wasn't just one, always. I mean, sometimes it was, but sometimes x could be 1 and 10 and 20, depending on what you did with y. Okay, I don't mean to confuse you with math, but if math's not your thing, if math is your thing, you probably just got what I just said. Basically, what I'm saying here is, you know, to get really good at answering yes or no questions with the runes, you need to explore the depth of the meanings of each rune. But, you know, maybe you're just getting started out and you want to play with this, and maybe you have a book where you can look up the meanings, or at least a really good sheet. Well, that's a start, okay? That's a start. But you're going to need to have some reference, or, you know, a good website. At the time I'm filming this, the only website I can recommend off the top of my head, and there may be others, okay, but really the only one that I really look to consistently for good rune interpretations is, I believe it's called runesecrets.com by Tyr-Tiwaz. You spell that maybe Tyriel. Anyway, runesecrets.com, Google that if you don't have a book to look up meanings, if you don't have some reference materials, because you're going to need something, okay? Now, so let's dive into this. How have I been answering yes or no questions with the rune? In a nutshell, remember, this is just a primer. Well, there's a few different ways. And okay, first off, I have found that the runes, when you say, should I do this, you know, or should I not, they can answer yes or no, and then sometimes they answer it does not matter. And I don't know if I'm going to get into the it does not matter part today, but I want you to know that they definitely can tell you it does not matter. Okay, but today, for example, I did a reading for a young man and who already has some education, but he wants to go into this certain field, which he's very well equipped to do already. I mean, there's a lot he will need to learn hands-on, but there's also much that he is bringing to it already. But he said, you know, I want to get started in this, and I don't know if I should go back to school or not. Should I go back to school for this or not? So I said, even though this was a psychic channeling reading, okay, primarily with a little bit of tarot thrown in, but I said, you know what, that's a question for the runes. Let's ask the runes. And the rune that I pulled, and let me show you here, and I might have to blow this up and put it, I will probably have to, let's see if I can just get closer. So that is Nauthiz, which is, let me see, going to be number 9, right? Excuse me, number 10. Number 9 is Nauthiz. Now, the way I drew it was like this. It was actually on a different rune set. So, okay, first of all, this rune is an interesting one to pay attention to. This specific rune in your set, I'm not saying just in my set. So, again, that's number 10 in the Elder Futhok. The need rune, need fire, right? Nauthiz, necessity, a lot of people call it. I think of it as innovation as well. Sometimes it's obsession. So there's some quick meanings on that. But this is one of the runes to pay attention to if you're looking for yes or no direction from the runes. Because what I have found, and again, this isn't something I read in a book, okay, or something somebody told me. This is practical, real-world experience. You know, I'm a Capricorn, so I put a lot of weight on actual life experience and not just theory. Okay, theory is cool. It's only useful, though, if it actually works. So what I found, and I found this today, that, you know, I asked the runes, you know, hey, should he or should he not go back to school? And I got this one, but I got it what I would call reversed. So I said, no, you do not need to go back to school, because the client's actual question was not just should, but do I need to go back to school? And out of all the 24 runes I could have drawn, I got the need rune, and I got it upside down. Now, I do want to comment something on this particular rune, the need rune, number 10. A lot of people say it doesn't really reverse. I probably even said it myself. And really, the reversal does not look that much different than the upright. So, you know, ordinarily, if I'm just reading it and reading as part of anything else, I don't pay, usually, it depends on what my intuition wants me to do, but most of the time I don't pay much attention to if it appears slightly reversed or not. But in this case, it made a lot of sense that it was reversed. And I could tell intuitively the runes were communicating to me, no, he does not need to go back to school. They didn't say, just to be clear here, they didn't say you can't go back to school. Although they might have been saying that with this need rune and being reversed, they might have been saying, hey buddy, you can't afford to go back to school right now, right? Because this is also often a rune of constraints and challenges. We didn't explore that part. I don't know if that is an issue or not. Frankly, I don't know. We answered the question like 30 seconds. How cool was that? If you could answer a yes or no question in 30 seconds. So look for that need rune is one of the runes to look for. Now, another rune that I have heard others say, and I've sometimes found this is true, but not always, okay? But I've heard that, and sometimes it works, if you ask a yes or no question, that the Tyr rune, so this is Tyr-Tiwaz, or Tyr, and that is going to be number 17, so it's the first one in the third row of the other food arc. And that is, you know, generally considered a victory rune. Victory through sacrifice, I might add. Victory through hard work, through honor, through doing things the right way. So a lot of times if that comes up in a reading, I mean, I think it depends. But if you specifically ask, you know, should I do this or not? You know, is this happening? And again, it depends on the question. But if you're simply saying, should I do this or not? Do I need to do this or not? Coming up upright, Tyr-Tiwaz. Tyr-Tiwaz is probably a should, because Tyr-Tiwaz is, you know, Tyr too is associated with your North Star, your higher path. So it might be saying this thing is on your higher path. Now, if it's reversed, it may be saying no. Okay? Keep in mind, these are very simplified ways of looking at it, but they might work most of the time. Okay? And especially if you're just drawing one rune only. Drawing one rune only is different than putting down a whole spread of even 3 or 4 runes, which is fine for most questions. 3 or 4 is fine for most things. But even then you have to read the runes in context of each other. So, you know, if Tyr, or Tiwaz, was, you know, right next to, say, Hagalaz, I might read it a little differently. So that's a video for another time. I guess what I'm saying, though, is you read the runes in context, you read them in synergy with each other in a multi-rune spread. But here, you know, we're just looking at, can you answer yes or no questions? And the answer to that is yes. So look for Nauthiz. If it's upright, it might be saying, yes, you need to do this, or you need to do something about this. It could also be saying, though, and this is where it gets tricky, it could also be saying, hey, you need to get more creative and find another way. So you have to kind of use your intuition to see if that's saying that. Now on Tiwaz, you know, usually it's going to be, if it's upright, yes, good direction to go in. You know, if the question is this a good direction to go in? Upright Tiwaz, yeah, you want to see that. Reverse Tiwaz, might be saying, at the very least, not right now, let's take a beat, let's pause. Okay, does that make sense? And I want to visit a few other runes before we finish this video. I'm not going to be able to tell you what each one of them means, yes or no, in this short video. That's, again, for the more in-depth course. And I frankly haven't thought about every one of these in relationship to yes or no, because typically the readings I do are more complex than that. But, you know, another interesting reading that a friend and I did together, well, we were having a discussion about Odin, okay, the mythology, and Odin on the world tree. And, you know, she was like, oh yeah, him hanging upside down. And I pointed out, well, we don't know that he hung upside down. We actually don't know that. I don't believe that the interpretation of the lore, the Nordic scriptures we have, says that he hung upside down. It doesn't say. You know, did he hang right side up? In other words, was he looking at the branches or was he looking at the roots? you know, for those 9 days and 9 nights. And keep in mind, I understand it's a metaphor too. But I said, well, you know, maybe we ought to ask the runes. So we asked the runes, we said, and this is kind of like yes or no. It's a little bit different, but I think it might help you for some of your questions that are close to yes or no. I asked the runes, you know, did Odin hang upside down or right side up on the world tree? And the rune that we got for that one was Hagalaz. And I think you all probably know that one if you read runes. So that's number 9, and it's also the first one in the second row. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? I want you to think about it for a beat. I'm going to tell you what me and her came up with, but just think about it for a beat. What do you think it means that I got the rune Hagalaz for you? Have you thought about it? Okay. What we both felt that the runes were saying to us with that is, it doesn't matter. And why? Why does it mean that? Because Hagalaz does not reverse. It's basically the same or very similar upside down, right side up. So it's almost saying it doesn't matter, or yes to both. Yes. And I realize that's a very deep spiritual question, but I could see where, you know, that could apply to many things. I mean, and also, if you wanted to get more information from that one rune, you could go deeper and you could say the runes were saying it doesn't matter, and the runes were also saying either way, Odin was working with the forces of creation and going through a kind of personal and spiritual crisis, because it's all associated with Hagalaz. And it was a controlled crisis. Odin put himself on the tree, created this emergency, this crisis, to improve himself, to gain a spiritual mastery, right? So that's all also inherent in there. That's way beyond yes or no, I know, but I hope that if you're reading for yourself and especially for others, that you'll be able to go beyond yes or no eventually and provide some real meat, some sustenance in your reading. There are other runes that are considered very quote-unquote positive. I mean, I think all of the runes have what I would call a light side and a shadow side. In other words, they all have energies that feel more welcoming, inviting. Well, most of them. And then they all have aspects, you know, that can be cautions, that can be part of the shadow, or part of the call to go within. So it's not always that easy, but again, maybe if you just ask the runes yes or no, and let's say you got, you know, should I do this? You know, should I do this thing? You got Gabo, the gift. Well, that might mean yes. Again, though, it does depend on the context. If your question was, you know, should I divorce my partner? I think getting Gabo might actually mean no. That's where knowing the meanings will help. Some people believe that you can get yes or no just by looking at whether it's so-called positive or negative rune. I don't think it's that simple. For me, it's not, but it might be for you. And that's the other thing. Rune reading is an intuitive art, like all forms of reading. So if you find it works that way for you, then it does. And, you know, if you find that, here's another simple way. You could just read it. You could just intend, okay, if I get a rune reversed, it means no. If I get a rune upright, it means yes. That will work well with the ones that reverse. And maybe if it doesn't reverse, it means it doesn't matter. You know, that is maybe one overall way to look at it. I don't think it's always that simple, but it might help you in the beginning to work in that way. And I realize some of you may not read reversals. I realize too that we have no historical proof that reversals were read. I'm not claiming that is a historical practice. Again, I'm claiming a practical practice here. What actually works in real life settings, reading for clients, reading for myself, my friends and family and loved ones. So how does it work for you? Do you already read with your runes to answer yes or no questions? And if so, if you have ideas on that or a process you would like to share, please, by all means, share it in the comments. I'm always open to learn from my fellow rune readers. Hope you found this video helpful. And until next time, may the blessings of the runes be with you watch over you, guide you, and protect you on your beautiful life journey. Rune blessings.